welcome back. It's 4 a.m., so it is time for the Inside Circle, where we talk about what a real book launch looks like, good, bad, the ugly, so that you can follow along as I launch these three books, but also so that you can learn if you're going to try and launch a book, all the things to do, all the things not to do. Hopefully, you guys are getting something out of this. So, today, what we're talking about is how do you talk to people at scale? How do you create the amount of content that you need to drive a book launch in the right way? You have a career, you have a new book, and you only have so many hours in a day. How do you market to everybody? How do you build this brand? You see people putting content out all over. How are they doing that in the minimum amount of time that they have throughout that week? We'll go through that today. There are plenty of places out there that you can buy this information from, that you can hire to teach you, but they all say basically the same thing in different ways. So we'll go through what that is, try and save you about $5,000, and then you can always pick your favorite one. And I've got a couple that are good, and go and use them if you want to learn more. Um, so first, don't be on every platform. Think about what platforms you want to be on, and don't be on all of them unless they are automated or unless they have specific benefits for you. So, automation is the new engine. If you are savvy enough to use it, you can be on multiple platforms, which is different than what it was in the past. So, I personally post on LinkedIn, Twitter, two YouTube accounts, TikTok, Substack, and sometimes Facebook, but not very often. So, why is that important? We'll go through each of those on why you would use it, why you might not. First, you have to decide who you are posting to. Always figure out who you're trying to talk to first, because that's going to decide what platforms you should be on. Then you're going to want to think about what you're going to post. So, what are you going to show those people, and why? And then and then you need to understand where you're going to post that and how you're going to post it, meaning automation, or is it going to be you or a VA or something like that. So LinkedIn, obviously, professional audience. So you have to post things that are going to fit the platform, but also drive towards your audience on that platform. Many times, book authors will include LinkedIn. It's a smart move, because you can get corporate sales, and you know a lot of people. That's where a lot of your network is. Twitter is a short-term audience. Going back to LinkedIn, the stuff lives on LinkedIn for a long time, but you typically get all your traffic right away. So you don't get a lot of long tail traffic on LinkedIn, although sometimes that stuff will show up in Google searches down the road if you're doing articles and newsletters and things like that. Twitter, short-term audience. So if you put a tweet out there, yes, it lives out there forever, but you're probably going to get all your traffic right off the bat, if any at all. And so just know that not to spend a terrible amount of time on Twitter, because it doesn't reinvest in itself. But if you do it regularly, you can obviously get a lot of engagement. YouTube, however, is a long tail search, meaning you can make a YouTube channel today. You might only get 7 views in the first month and 20 views in the first 3 months, but 3 years from now, you could have 1,000 views on that video. Why? Because it shows up in the Google search and the algorithm. It starts gathering long tail keywords. People start putting it into an article here or there, and all of a sudden, over time, your less popular videos at the beginning can become your more popular videos at the end. Video is a huge, huge opportunity for you as an author, but you do have to start early. So not right during launch. You have to start early and start to develop that presence. It does grow organically. So as you get bigger, your YouTube investment will kind of increase its return on investment over time. TikTok, however, is kind of a short term video search, meaning you can put it on there, it will live, but you again will get most of your views right at the beginning on TikTok. Substack, long-term community building. I really only did it because I already had 90 subscribers over there, so it was worth it. But and because you can automate everything on TikTok or on Substack. Facebook, very committed fans. I don't have a very big following over there, so I don't use it. But the folks who do well on Facebook. And then the most important one is your own website. Your own website, these are your owned audience. Algorithms can change on every other platform, but your website is the most important audience, and you do want to drive people back to your website, get those email addresses, have engagement on your website. It is your most valuable audience. So how do you manage all this? So there's a content method that I've put together, and it's modeled after what a lot of other people have done, but we call it the Karelin content method. And basically, you start with a 10-minute solo podcast. And the reason we chose that is because you can basically do that whenever. I can knock out 10-minute podcasts in a night real easy, in a couple hours, just sitting here in front of the bookcase. So 10-minute podcast, you're going to write out 1 year worth of scripts. You're going to take your book and you're going to chunk it up and say, okay, I'm going to do 52 episodes this year. And you're going to probably use AI and try and figure out, like, what are the best 52 topics in this book for a 10-minute solo podcast. And you'll give it some ideas. Maybe you ask for 100 and you start cutting it out, but you find the 52 best possible episodes for a 10-minute short, hard, fast, bold, fast-paced, type podcast, where you're just going to sit in front of the camera and talk for 10 minutes. Write out a year's worth of these scripts, and it's important to do that for a few reasons that we'll talk about next. And so a 10-minute podcast, right, you're going to want a few thousand words. And then you're going to take each of these scripts and you're going to turn them into a LinkedIn newsletter of about 1,000 words. So you can do one LinkedIn newsletter. I have 4 right now. You can do up to 5. And about 1,000 words each. You can turn that same article into a blog post, 2,500 words, put it onto your website. And in that, you're going to want to include external links. A lot of people don't do that. They're afraid to put links in that'll take people off the website, but that'll help your SEO dramatically. So you're going to want to go out and find high domain authority links like .edus, consultants, Fast Fortune Inc., Fast, that kind of thing. Turn that into a 2,500 word website blog. So now you have the same content. You have made 52 podcast episodes. You've made 52 LinkedIn newsletters. You've made 52 articles on your website, which, by the way, most people don't even get that many articles on the website. Once you get to 50, 100, 250 articles, that's when your SEO finally starts working and people come to your website. The reason most people don't get there is because they quit too early. Then you take each of these 10-minute podcast episodes as you do them. So you do them, you're launching on a certain day every week, certain time every week. I don't think that's as important as some people do, but you're supposed to do it that way. And you take them, you use a tool called Opus, which is an AI-generated tool. What it'll do is you'll drop your website in or your podcast in. It'll kick out 5 to 10 to 15 shorts. So these are 30-second to 2-minute videos that it'll automatically grab. It'll put words on the screen, super nice shorts, and you can put those onto Twitter. You can put those onto YouTube. You can put those onto TikTok automatically from the tool. So now all of a sudden you've got 10 pieces of content that you're going to organically post on Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. And they're each going to be native videos, which means they're not going to link back to YouTube, which means they'll actually get more engagement on those channels. So now with one 10-minute podcast, you have a podcast, a LinkedIn newsletter, a blog post, and you're going to kick out 10 more videos on 3 different platforms. So that's 30 short videos. So now you've got 33 pieces of content. And really all you did was about 10 minutes of work and then maybe an hour on top of that of writing and posting and that kind of thing. So 1 hour drives 33 pieces of content. Other things you're going to do are you're going to go on guest podcasts. That's probably the most time consuming, but also the coolest way to increase your audience. I didn't want to do this. I thought it was silly. You go on all these podcasts, they have like 15, 20 views. But I'll tell you that, first of all, you never know which podcast is going to hit. So I had one podcast that had 3,400 views. I've got several podcasts that have a couple hundred views, and they're not usually the ones you think. So you never know which one's going to hit. And then they also market you. So like one podcast will be out there, and I'll have 20 shorts associated with that podcast that are also out there, that I'll just run into that I never knew were there because they're turning them into shorts and they're marketing in other ways. You're going to get SEO because they're going to backlink you to their website, and their websites are usually pretty solid. So the podcast is a big deal, but it is a time commitment, right? So you can choose to do one a week, but it might be a half hour. So in the same time that it takes you to do, 33 pieces of content, you might only be doing one guest post on a podcast, and that is a significant effort, but it is worth it if you're in the game for SEO and community building and really getting other people to hear you. So one thing that Rory Vaden talks a lot about, who's part of Brand Builders Group, which is one of the groups I would recommend talking to, is that people are not going to buy your book unless they've heard something you've said or read something you wrote. So during this book launch period, you should be talking as much as you can, writing as much as you can, making sure that people are hearing you talk and reading what you write. One thing he always says is people don't pay for information, they pay for organization. So take your entire book and make it free, but make it free in that you have to read 500 pieces of content to get everything that you would have to get if you read the book. And what people will do is they're not going to read 500 pieces of content. They're going to read 1, 2, or 3, realize that they like you, and decide whether or not they want to buy your book. So that's the important part. So again, going back, the 30 minutes drives 30 pieces of content, or you can do one guest post or guest podcast, which is a significant portion of time. Now, I've done over 40 of them. I believe in it. It is paying dividends. But you either have to go after only big ones, or you have to do a bunch of them. That's kind of the two podcast things. Your own podcast, going back to this, you can also post the audio of this. So you can use tools like Descript and get the audio file. And then you can post on Apple and Spotify and Buzzsprout and all these, and get more audience that way. I have not done that. I'll probably do that for book number 2 because I want about 50 episodes before I go live on the audio for some other reasons that'll drive extra traffic and things like that. And then, of course, you can take that podcast and actually get the script, get the transcript from that podcast, and turn that into additional content as well. So you can do that same thing. You can put it into AI and say, take this and turn it into 20 tweets, take this and turn it into 3 LinkedIn posts and things like that. So you can really get up to about 100 pieces of content in 1 hour of actual work. So when you are watching these authors and you're like, man, they must just sit on their computer all day long and pump out content, they're not working and this and that. That's not what's really happening. So in approximately 3 hours a week, I'm pumping out about 150 pieces of content, doing guest hosting, guest podcasts, 2 a week, 1 a week, and doing my own podcast. And that takes about 3 hours a week. So the time that most people are watching football, one football game out of the entire week, that's the amount of time it's taken to do about 150 posts out there. And if you do 150 posts for a year, think about that, 150 posts a week for a year, you're talking about like 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 posts. And so what ends up happening is then when people are typing in your name, Todd Hagopian, on Google, try that, see what pops up. If you type in Todd Hagopian on Google, what will start to pop up is not only will there be a ton of video, which helps you because people are watching that and deciding if they like your content, your website will start popping up. Guest posts where you posted on other people's website or people talked about something you said will start popping up. Your tweets will pop up. You might even get a Google knowledge panel where suddenly it'll pop up and say, Todd Hagopian, have a picture and author or, website and this and this and this. And those Google knowledge panels are huge because as people actually start to Google you because they've heard you on a podcast or whatnot, sometimes it's hard to find you because you have not cultivated your brand. And that's tough because you're listening to a podcast. If they get to the point where they want to Google you, and get back to their desk and Google you, and you're not easy to find, they're not going to find you. So if you can get all this content going, Google now knows who you are, and they'll make what they call a knowledge panel, and you will have a whole bunch of information pop up when people Google you. So then they will automatically be able to find your website and things like that. It's very, very powerful. I will tell you that. Yeah, you also have no control over it. So it comes, it goes, it changes. I was a politician for a while on my knowledge panel because of past activities. Slowly, I'm moving towards author and business, and sometimes it says author, sometimes it says politician. They just kind of decide what I am at that moment. So it's a little bit frustrating, but the important part is when that Google Knowledge Panel is showing up, I actually can tell because I get a lot more traffic from Google than normal because people can just find my website and click it. It's a very, very powerful tool. SEO in general is the last thing I'm going to talk about. People always dog on SEO, which is search engine optimization, and AEO, which is I believe answer engine optimization. I guess it's for the AI version of SEO. The issue here and the reason people don't like it is because it takes forever to build, and it's expensive to do it fast, and not very effective to do it fast. People will charge you $5,000, $10,000 a month to do your SEO. In my opinion, it's not worth it. Do your own. And here's the key: you need volume of content and you need quality of content. And so a lot of people are like, do a blog post every day. And so they put in like a 300 word, hey, how are you kind of blog post every day. That is not going to help you in SEO. It needs to be quality content, needs to be proprietary frameworks, needs to be brand new ideas, and it needs to be lengthy. Okay. Got to have 1,000 words, got to have impactful. And if you want it to show up in answer engine for the AI, it's got to have question headers. So, what's the best way to increase productivity instead of here is the Carellin method of productivity. And then the next paragraph needs to give a succinct answer that Google can grab. That's how you'll end up showing up there. And I'm starting to, and it's really interesting. It's very, very good traffic where somebody will put in what's the best way to increase productivity, and then something I say will pop up. It's just a really good way to get traffic. But anyway, so you have to have 1,000 words minimum, in my opinion. People will tell you different things. And then you should have several 2,500 word articles on there where you really are using external links that drives your EEAT, which is how Google decides if you're an important person or not, drives your EEAT up to actually use external links and use other people's EEAT to drive yours up, which basically means I'm not afraid to quote Harvard and let you pop off to their page. I'm just not afraid. You can read my article, pop over to Harvard. You can read my article, go to Fast Company, and read where I got some of that information from, rather than pretend it's my own, or rather than just have it buried without a link so that nobody can get away from my page. Using those external links helps you a lot. Internal links help you a lot, where you link articles to each other. A lot of people will pay tons of money to have that done. There are essentially free apps that'll do it for you. You go on to your website and you say, every time it says Carellin method, I want you to link to this article on my website. I have probably 200 of those set up. So out of my 200 articles on the website, I have something like 4,500 internal links. And so when you read an article on my website, there might be 15 links you can click on to go to other articles, depending on what words are showing up in that article. And that helps your EEAT and your Google searchability. So why is this all important? The important part is most people pay $500 to $5,000 to start a website, and then they start blogging, and then for 6 months they get zero traffic and they quit. That's by design. Google will not give you any traffic for the first 6 months. You're in the sandbox. You're not getting in any of the queries. So there's tools you can use: Google Search Console, Ahrefs, Dib, SiteKit. There's a lot of tools you can use that'll start to help you figure out when you're starting to show up in traffic and when you're not, where your traffic's coming from, and things like that. But the important part is it's a long game. You have to write hundreds of articles. You have to commit to a 200 article site, 2,500 plus words on many of them. You should even have some 10,000 word pillar articles that just have tons of information. So take a whole chapter of your book, turn it into a pillar article. 10,000 words is not that much when you think about putting a huge article together. And then you have 10 spoke articles coming off of that pillar. So I might have a Karelin method of productivity pillar article that's 10,000 words. And then I have 10 different spoke articles that are 2,500 words about how to use Karelin method in manufacturing and how to use Karelin method for executives, and 10 ways the Karelin method increases your productivity, and 3 myths about productivity, and this and that. You take that pillar article and turn it into 10 to 15 other articles, all linking back to the pillar article. So let's talk about that for a second because it's important. So let's say you take a chapter of your book and you write a 10,000 word pillar article, and you start to Google and say, what are all the different types of articles, or use chat, what are all the different types of articles I can write off of this pillar article? And they'll say, do a checklist, do a glossary, do a FAQ, do a myth buster, do a laws of, do a industry by industry, and you can come up with 15 to 20 different spoke articles off of this pillar article, and you can write them. And then all of a sudden, this one chapter in your book turned into 2,500 word articles. So now you got 50,000 words of content about each chapter in your book. Your 80,000 word book just turned into 500,000 words of content, and they're all getting out there in long tail searches for Google. And for 6 months, it's going to suck, and not one person's going to read it. And 3 years from now, you'll be getting 10,000 hits a day to your website. And that's the power of SEO. So your book can live forever if you put it in enough places where it's going to show up for a long enough time. So Google and YouTube are the keys, but also LinkedIn and some of the socials, to drive the content explosion that we've talked about today. So anyway, I'm going to stop there. I'll put more in the LinkedIn newsletter that I put out in a couple hours, but I wanted to go through how authors create this much content. Because it's important to realize that one podcast can drive 30 to 100 pieces of social media content. One pillar article, 10,000 word article, can drive 500,000 words of content on your website and out. You could take those same things and turn them into posts and turn them into Medium articles and Forbes articles and LinkedIn newsletters and things like that. So that's how people are doing it. They're not sitting at home for 8 hours a day kicking out content. They are finding ways to spend 2 or 3 hours and kick out massive amounts of content in many different formats on that same issue, which is what you should do because you probably only have 10 big ideas in your book. Each of those ideas should be in 2,000 different things by the time your book launches, so that every time somebody Googles that, you are the first, 8 of the first 10 things that pop up. So anyway, that's content explosion. We'll talk more about that. And I don't even know what's on for next week, but I will put it in the newsletter so that you guys know what next week is going to hold. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you.